Monday, everybody. So over the weekend, Iran launched an attack on Israel involving nearly 200 drones. Meanwhile, America responded with one. Of course, the Biden White House is blaming Trump for this turmoil. True, if only Trump had won, we wouldn't be in this mess. Yeah. I'll take it. But President Biden remains resolute on Iran, saying he won't rest until they release our hostages. It's a thinker. Meanwhile, Joe Biden called Donald Trump a bully at a campaign stop. Then she spent the rest of the day forcing a confused and elderly man to remain president. Oh, here's a fun one. I know you're going to love this. A politician in Spain has resigned after videos circulated online of him eating his own poop. I know. Talk about a way to lose your job. You know, he once tried to dine at a restaurant in San Francisco, but he never made it past the sidewalk. The good news is he got a sponsorship deal for Mentos. You know, but when reporters asked why he ate his own poo, he said, "Of course I wouldn't eat someone else's excrement. I'm not some weirdo." The audience is left in a daze. On Sunday at the Masters, video of Tiger Woods appeared to show him shaking hands with a tree. Apparently, Tiger was apologizing for that time he almost killed his brother. Look at it. It's a tree. But judging by this photo, all was forgiven. Washington, D.C. has been named America's hardest working city. Unfortunately, though, that only applies to plastic surgeons. On this day in 1912, the Titanic sank less than 3 hours after hitting an iceberg. To commemorate the date, Lizzo is taking an ice plunge. And, of course, finally, today is tax day. In preparation, Hunter Biden spent all last week sending 1099s to prostitutes. All right, to the news. Like I said, over the weekend, Iran launched an all-out attack on Israel, shooting as many as 300 drones and rockets at the Jewish state. And I don't mean Florida. The result? One injury. One. By that metric, it was far more dangerous to be on the New York subway this weekend than strolling around Tel Aviv. Seriously, you have a better chance of getting hurt trying to take a burrito from Whoopi Goldberg. Give credit to Israel's air defense system, Iron Dome, which is the same nickname we gave Jesse Waters' head. Now, however, give the Iranians their due. It's an accomplishment to send hundreds of projectiles and kill no one. Nobody has bombed this badly since Jimmy Fallon got his own show. When he gets preempted by disaster coverage, viewers can't tell the difference. But it's all a reminder that Iran typically prefers to do its dirty work by proxies, grimy organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, and the University of California, Berkeley. But this was an escalation, and anytime an enemy nation does something it hasn't done before, you got to ask why. What's changed? Iran certainly hasn't. The mullahs are the same charming gents they've been since '79, and that's 979, in case you're counting. So then what's changed? Well, America, namely a president who's weaker than Jimmy Carter in '79. Hell, he's weaker than Jimmy is now. Remember the old phrase, speak softly and carry a big stick? Now it's mumble incoherently and use a walker. On top of that, we got a broken southern border, a disgraceful Afghanistan retreat, and a military that's more concerned with trans than torpedoes. Our best hope is that our enemies die laughing. If you don't believe me, consider the difference between October 7th and April 13th. Iran's doctrine has always been, let the people we supply and train have the literal blood on our hands, on their hands. We'll stay back like the craven cowards we are. Except for this Saturday. Sure, the Iron Dome works, but come on, Iran couldn't kill a single person? Obama's drone strikes killed more than that accidentally. The lesson is, when Iran has to do the dirty work themselves, they don't. They farm it out, like when I have interns deep clean my jacuzzi. So why did they bother with this? Maybe to see if Biden would answer the 3 a.m. call or a 3 p.m. call, or if he'd respond to his home health aide trying to shake him awake. Remember Obama's red line when he threatened Syria but did nothing when they crossed it? That showed the Middle East that America's resolve was softer than Bill Clinton seeing Hillary step out of the shower. Now, say what you want about Trump, but one of the things the media hated about him was his unpredictability, which kept stuff like this from happening. It's funny, when academics or the State Department use that strategy, they give it a fancy term like strategic ambiguity. Strategic ambiguity. I guess it applies here. But with Trump, it's called unstable, erratic. But it's the same thing. Make the enemy wonder what you're capable of and keep them worried. You know, like a good football coach would do. Just ask friends of Soleimani, the Iranian major general who was a major problem until Trump's airstrike turned him into a carpet stain. You think anyone in Iran is afraid of Biden's national security team? The team that brought us Afghanistan? Let's see, you got a president who can barely walk, a Veep that can barely talk, a Secretary of Defense who disappears for weeks at a time, a Secretary of State who looks like he's seen a ghost, and a National Security Advisor who looks like that ghost. I haven't seen a less impressive group of 5 people since I let that Menudo cover band sleep on my couch. So we're in the red zone now. And Biden's attempt to neutralize the mullahs by burying them under piles of money, that flopped. Things are changing faster than a girls' swim team with Leah Thomas in their locker room. We're in a dangerous place, and that's not me talking. Here's FBI Director Chris Wray.
Our most immediate concern has been that individuals or small groups will draw some kind of twisted inspiration from the events in the Middle East to carry out attacks here at home. Increasingly concerning is the potential for a coordinated attack here in the homeland, akin to the ISIS-K attack we saw at the Russia concert hall just a couple weeks ago.
Sounds serious. Too bad our so-called leaders aren't. In the old days, the battle of the 3-letter agencies meant CIA and FBI versus KGB. Now CIA and FBI worry more about DEI. And we have a DHS that's MIA on the border. It's time to put out an SOS. We've never seemed weaker, and the bad guys can see it. And what they're seeing is a president who thought this would work.
I have one word. Don't. 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 Don't.
Maybe that was Joe reacting to Dr. Jill approaching him with an anal thermometer. Now, clapping over the old poop joke. Now, Iran could also be looking to further draw from the bank of Holocaust goodwill by baiting Israel into doing something out of proportion to the attack. That's one thing Iran and other anti-Semites will never forgive Israel for. The fact that 6 million of them were murdered must be part of that Jewish plan for world domination. If that's what Iran is up to, that's also something new. And that could normalize more direct attacks on Israel. And while John Kirby blames Trump for all this, the White House has been busy enriching Iran by waiving sanctions against Iran selling oil. PayPal would have been a lot easier, Joe. So really, the big day wasn't Saturday, it was Sunday, and all the other days after the attack. Please, someone explain that to Joe, even if you have to use flashcards. Let's welcome tonight's guest. He claims hollow point bullets as a tax write-off. Former CIA operative and host of the President's Daily Brief podcast, Mike Baker. If she had beat Gretchen, Michigan wouldn't be Rection. Former Michigan gubernatorial candidate Tudor Dixon. His favorite bar snack is gravel. Comedian Jim Florentine. She's like a boomerang, oddly shaped and refuses to go away. New York Times best-selling author and Fox News contributor, Cat Mike, as someone who has had thousands of people murdered, Do you think it odd that Iran couldn't kill anyone? Do you think this was a face-saving retaliation? Or was the response from Israel and its allies that good?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I can't argue with your numbers at the, at the top of the intro. Yeah, they were playing to a home crowd, right? They were playing to an audience, in part. Now, a couple of things. First of all, for the Biden administration to blame Trump for this, I mean, they blame him for everything, so that's just kind of their theatrics, but is nonsensical. Biden spent the past 3 years putting in Iran apologists into all the Iran-focused positions, Pentagon, State Department, White House. They have this mindset that if you appeased Iran, right, that somehow they join up with the community of nations, and we'd all, you know, have unicorns flying out of our asses. But which
as opposed to the reverse.
Yeah, yeah. So, but what's happened at this point is, I don't know where the unicorn thing came from, and I'm sorry about that.
That's okay.
But
you almost made it to a complete point.
I almost did. Thank you for pointing that out. Now I forgot where I am. No, I know where I am. Shut up. Hold on. So my point is that what they've done here with this particular attack was they telegraphed it, right? So they advised the U.S. government. I suspect they probably advised the regional allies of the U.S. what was coming down the pike. They had to show something to the home crowd, their population, that they were strongly responding to the killing of Sahedi and the others in Damascus. But they can't win the war against Israel. A direct conflict with Israel and the U.S., they're not going to win, and they know that. They understand that. So they, as soon as they did this, they provided an off-ramp to Israel and said, we deem this matter done and concluded. And, you know, ever since then, they've been standing around hoping that Israel doesn't take the next step.
That is an interesting risk to take, Tudor, to do a face-saving operation and then hope that they don't blow you to smithereens after sending 300 projectiles that could have killed more than one person, 5 people, 10, 100?
Well, I think that they thought that they would put Joe Biden in a real pickle, and he would have to come out and say that he doesn't support Israel. And ultimately, I think this is a huge win for Donald Trump, because now the American people are like, well, where is Joe Biden? And Joe Biden said he was with, and he helped that night, but now he's telling Netanyahu back off. And ultimately, you're in a situation where women across the country are saying, I just want someone to stand for me. And Donald Trump is the guy that was like, yeah, we're just going to take out Soleimani. And now Joe Biden's in an even worse position. So ultimately, his $6 billion that he sent to Iran, not a good investment for him, because it's tanking him as a president.
It's an interesting point, because he does. He has lost, this concept. He never had a position of strength, but he's lost that. He's also lost voters on the Democratic side, right? He is losing, really, on all counts when it comes to the Middle East at this point. It's a very interesting situation.
Yeah, he can't appease any side. Jim, you've been a fervent and long-term follower of the Middle East. I've read a lot of your books. They're amazing. I can't believe you do all that research on your own. How do you see this now? Do you think this is a perfect opportunity for Israel to take Iran out based on all of this stuff? Like, you will never get a better chance to kind of turn over the apple cart. I think that was your phrase in your last book, Turn Over the Apple Cart, by Jim Florentine.
It was, yeah. I mean, look, Israel's got to do what they got to do.
Yeah.
You know, they got attacked, even though it was kind of lame.
Yeah.
You know, I saw a better fireworks show at my neighbor's 4th of July party Saturday night. I'm waiting for something good. Nothing happened. But no, Israel's got to do what they got to do. I mean, they got attacked, so if they attack, just like we did after 9/11, we went to Afghanistan because we saw a video of like 4 al-Qaeda guys on monkey bars and go, they're a threat. And we decided to stay there for 20 years.
Yes.
You know, it was like a CrossFit, mutter run or whatever. You know, those guys are dangerous. They did 40 pull-ups. We got to go invade that country. So Israel's got to do what they got to do. But Biden's also telling Israel, listen, I'm going to do nothing if you attack Iran, which is like his border policy.
Yeah.
Going to do nothing.
Yeah, nobody buys the don't thing. He says don't about everything, but nobody takes his word for it because it's got no power behind it.
And then he told Israel, take the win, you got the win.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, he probably thought he was talking to that woman from South Carolina that won the college basketball team. He was probably congratulating, you got the win, take the win. He didn't know he was talking to Israel.
Yeah, that's true. Kat, welcome back. You were gone for a while. You were so missed.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What should Joe Biden do in this situation, Miss Timpf?
What was that?
It's hard for me to do a serious topic on a Monday.
Yeah, no, look, I think that you're right that it does put him in a tough position. I think it's probably was a way more tough day for Iran, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
I mean, how did that conversation go with all those dudes? Were they like, oh, man, or were they like, that was good? I don't know. It's tough. But going back to another point you made in your monologue, too, just about what the military is focused on. I mean, something I've been saying for years that I've gotten some crap for before is that military spending, we spend so much on the military. I would say too much on the military. And people say, oh, you need a strong military. Okay, but military spending, of course you need a strong military. Military spending doesn't always equate to military strength. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's never been clearer when you look at some of the things that the military is focusing on, that that's the case. Mm-hmm. I am so disillusioned, unfortunately, with the way that a lot of these things are run in terms of there's all these different motivations. Biden is not just weighing, what to do in terms of the country, but also in terms of politically in the election year, as people have pointed out. And then there's all this money involved. And I just think, I think that we all need to just pay very, very close attention to everything that's going on. Because as you put, 20 years in Afghanistan, and then look at what happened after all that. Yeah. So.
Well, look, strong military isn't just a resource issue. It's a leadership issue, right? In fact, primarily it's a leadership issue. We can have all the resource military we want. But if I could just make one quick point, is that the problem that we've got right now is all the instability, everything that's happening in the region right now, is down to Iran. Iran resources and funds and trains and guides Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, Islamic Jihad, a variety of other groups. And in fact, Zahedi, the general who was taken out in Damascus, was responsible in part for planning October 7th. Yep. Right? And so that was one good reason to remove him from the planet. But the problem is, it's true. If you took out Iran right now, the one thing that could assure midterm to long-term peace in the Middle East would be removing the Iranian regime, right? So is this a perfect time to do that? I mean, it sounds very mercenary and horrible, and people are going to call me a warmonger. I'm not proposing that, but I'm saying that in a practical sense, if you stepped back, took a deep breath, and said, what is causing the violence and instability and chaos in the Middle East? It's the Iranian regime. So, but the problem is, once you start down that path, you can't control it, right? It spirals out of control, and we have no idea how bad that conflagration gets.
Wow, it's like one of your sentences.
I know.
Take that. Take that, Chin.
Thank you.
Floored you in the area of Middle East policy. Up next, as America plunges into the abyss, it's Trump whose voters miss.
If you'll be in the New York area and would like tickets to see Gutfeld, go to foxnews.com/Gutfeld and click on the link to join our studio audience.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.